The sixth season of Outlander is based on the book A Breath of Snow and Ashes. Outlander Season 6 Episode 7 appears to have foretold a violent finish for Claire and Jamie in the finale, possibly even a departure from the novels, as hinted at in the novel's title. Claire expresses her concern that she may have killed Malva accidentally while under the influence of her own ether in Episode 7, shortly after Claire and Jamie battled with Malva's charge of infidelity leveled at Jamie. Claire describes her anxieties by comparing it to leaving the oven on, or a candle, for a more period-appropriate analogy, after leaving the house and being terrified of accidentally burning it down. This scenario appears to allude to a planned fate Claire and Jamie are supposed to experience, as predicted by Brianna in the 1960s. The sixth season has come to an end. The subject of who murdered Malva, as well as how Claire and Jamie can prove their innocence, remains unanswered. Because Malva is such a divisive and contentious character in the book canon, book readers will be disappointed that the episode failed to answer these questions. The episode certainly lay the groundwork for a larger Season 7, but it did so at the expense of pace issues in the middle. Episode 8 picks up precisely where the previous episode left off, with Richard Brown's Committee of Safety encircling the mansion. Jamie and Claire are on their own, as many occupants of the Ridge have fled for safety or are missing. After an argument, Claire shoots a man who tries to grab her in the dark. Jamie and Claire must rely on one another for strategy and weapon supply. The siege on the Ridge will go all night. Hiram Crombie and the other fishermen arrive, not to defend Jamie and Claire, but rather to persuade them to stop resisting the arrest. Only because Tom Christie promises to keep Jamie and Claire safe do they grudgingly agree to surrender to face a jury trial in Salisbury. This isn't a guarantee that Brown isn't motivated by a desire to avenge his brother's murder last season, but it does ensure that no one else is wounded. Brown's men have told everyone in the surrounding districts that Claire is a murdering witch, that Jamie is the father of Malva's child, and that he may have even had a hand in her killing, thus the journey to Claire's trial is dangerous. Except for the Frasers, who now have thousands of haters ready to commit vigilante justice, the committee is doing an excellent job of keeping everyone safe. When the visitors get in Salisbury, Brown discovers that the sheriff and other legislators have resigned due to the colonists' objections. Brown decides to drive another 200 miles for the trial in Wilmington. If the trial is held at Cross Creek, where Jocasta lives, he doesn't want Claire to have an advantage. Unfortunately, more time on the road means more opportunities for Jamie and Claire to be wounded by the Committee of Safety and their allies. Claire's sorrow is perfectly captured in these sequences, as is Jamie's need to defend her no matter what. Angry peasants toss bricks and stones at one rest area, saying Claire is a witch. Brown is obliged to intervene in order to keep the mob at bay. Claire is hurt when she collides with a villager who tries to jump inside the wagon. Roger and Bree's voyage to the seminary is supposed to be similar to Jamie and Claire's, but there's a tone difference, and the stakes aren't even close to being identical. This disagreement does not imply that their storyline development was unnecessary or that it was a distraction from Jamie and Claire. Roger becomes a preacher in numerous chapters of A Breath of Snow and Ashes, and Roger and Bree debate how their knowledge of the Revolutionary War impacts their family. During Roger and Bree's trip, the main struggle is Jemmy's lice, as well as indications and introspection regarding the truth of their future knowledge. Before the Committee of Safety arrived to arrest Claire, Roger and Bree had plainly fled the Ridge. In the woods, they don't come across any of Brown's men, thieves, or enraged townspeople. There isn't a fire, nor a storm, nor any other natural disaster. Although their voyage eventually answers the question of whether Jemmy is Roger's child, a lingering topic from Season 4, the episode's pacing troubles occur in the middle. Ian returns from his hunting expedition to discover Lizzie sobbing about Claire and Jamie being kidnapped by the mafia. Ian surprises Jamie at one of the campgrounds along the trip, telling him that, if they wish to flee, he has troops hiding in the bushes and adjacent mountains. Jamie tells Ian to back off because Brown has too many allies who would be interested in claiming the reward money if he was captured. The rhythm of the episode improves after this sequence, as viewers are aware that there will be another battle or conflict scene ahead. The next day, at one more stop for water, the men force Jamie to move back from the wagon. This is a setup to separate Claire and Jamie, and the wagon then, at that point, carries Claire alone towards Wilmington. Tom Christie chooses, shockingly, to go with Claire the remainder of the way. They show up in Wilmington after a colonist riot against the British. The harm to the buildings and representations make the print shop riot in episode 5 seem to be a toddler fit of rage and correlation. Tom says Jamie isn't dead, however what Claire doesn't know is that Jamie is still in danger. Brown's men have attached him to a stake on the beach and are planning to send Jamie on a ship to Scotland, so he at no point ever sees Claire in the future. Ian and the Cherokee warriors fire arrows from the clifftop, stopping the scheme in its tracks. The episode ends with Jamie and Ian's party riding along the beach, probably going to meet Claire at the prison. Ian's last-minute salvage was indicated in the episode title. The Frasers actually have family and partners to depend on. Many would have contemplated whether Ian and the other missing men from the Ridge would have the option to help Jamie and Claire all through the episode. A few times, there are mentions of Richard Brown giving his all to harm public sentiment against the Frasers to set up the possibility that nobody was coming to help. While this cliffhanger neglects to respond to the unsettled inquiries behind Malva's murder, it sets up a future clash between the Cherokee and supportive of autonomy colonists. Claire is taunted in prison with a hanging for murder and black magic by an obscure man. He seems, by all accounts, to be a similar secretive figure from the episode 5 cliffhanger. Who is he, and what is his wrongdoing? Does he have a ton of familiarity with Malva's case, or would he say he is associated with another plotline? Might he at some point represent a danger to Claire and Jamie, assuming that the sheriff chooses to set him free from prison? If Outlander fans would rather not stand by a little while to find out, perusing A Breath of Snow and Ashes will uncover all.